Imagine dying 81 times in a palace, and each time, you come back just to spill the juiciest secrets. Today, I'm revealing the Emperor's scandals, the consort's betrayals, and trust me, nothing is off limits. Welcome to chaos, palace style. After going through deaths by poisoned wine, a white silk cord, and arrows piercing my heart, on my 18th reload of the game, I decided to embrace the art of going completely unhinged. The Empress Dowager is into women. The Emperor likes men, and Consort Lin is actually a man. The child in the Empress's belly belongs to a guard. I clicked my tongue and said, "This palace of yours really plays wild." My strategy was simple. If I couldn't survive, I'd drag everyone down with me in one glorious social death explosion. 01. My name is Lin Lang. I used to be an ordinary office worker. Now I'm a minor concubine in the imperial harem. When I first realized I had transmigrated, I was full of ambition. No matter what, I thought I at least had to survive past the first 3 episodes, right? As it turned out, I became a scapegoat right from the start and was sent to the afterlife with a single cup of poison wine. The second time, I managed to last 3 days. Then an assassin slit my throat with one stroke. The third time, it was a white silk cord. The fourth time. The fifth time. After experiencing 81 different ways of dying, poisoned wine, hanging, arrows through the heart, and everything in between, I finally saw the truth. Since none of them wanted to play nice with me, then fine. I'd go crazy and take them all down together. On the 18th reload, I was being forced by palace maids to kneel in front of the Emperor, the Empress Dowager, the Empress, and a whole group of imperial consorts. The Emperor glared at me furiously. "Lady Lin, you attempted to harm the imperial heir. What crime do you deserve?" The so-called victim, noble Lady Shen, knelt on the floor dressed in plain white, looking pitiful and delicate. "Your Majesty, you must seek justice for our child." The Empress shook her head with a look of regret. "Lady Lin, if you confess now and reveal who put you up to this, I can show mercy and spare your life." Consort Lin looked at her with disdain. "Sister, how generous of you. Easy to say, when it wasn't your child who died." I let out a small laugh. This plot again. How familiar. I had been kneeling, but my knees hurt, so I simply leaned back and sat down on the floor. Before the masters could even react, a eunuch shouted, "How dare you be so disrespectful?" The Emperor's face darkened. "Lin Lang, are you trying to die faster?" I smiled. "Not at all. I'll confess, clearly and thoroughly." Hearing that, the Emperor said in a low voice, "Speak. Who ordered you to harm the imperial heir?" I blinked at him and replied, "Of course it was Consort Lin." Consort Lin jumped up at once. "Nonsense. When did I ever order you to harm the imperial heir?" I changed position and crossed my legs as I sat. "You didn't order me. You directly forced noble Lady Shen to drink abortion medicine, planning to frame the Empress, who knew the Empress had already prepared for it. So, in the end, I became the unlucky scapegoat." Noble Lady Shen immediately cried out in protest. "Your Majesty, how could I possibly harm my own child?" "Utter nonsense," the Emperor said, clearly unconvinced. "Hey, don't be in such a hurry," I said. I still wanted to chat a bit more. But Consort Lin was obviously afraid I really had some kind of evidence and quickly began whispering accusations to the Emperor. "Your Majesty, in my opinion, the matter is already perfectly clear. Lady Lin was jealous and deliberately harmed the imperial heir. Consort Lin was the Emperor's favorite, the darling of his heart." As soon as she spoke, the Emperor nodded immediately. "My beloved is right. Guards, take her away and beat her to death." Seeing the guards already step forward to seize me, I knew time was running out. There was no way to explain slowly anymore. "You forced my hand," I said. The Emperor sneered. Consort Lin looked disdainful. Noble Lady Shen fumed silently. Everyone else just watched the show. I gave a cold laugh and began my performance. The Empress Dowager is into women, and she has an intimate relationship with her trusted maid. The Empress Dowager's expression darkened instantly. The emperor stared at her in shock and disbelief. The guards had already grabbed my arms, so I hurried to keep going. The emperor likes men, and Consort Lin is actually a man. Everyone present was stunned. Even the two guards dragging me out stumbled in their steps. The empress stood up in disbelief. Consort Lin is a man? Consort Lin turned pale with fright and nervously hid behind the emperor. What is sister talking about? How can you believe such malicious nonsense? The emperor cleared his throat, trying to sound firm. Mother, this is slander from a criminal. The Empress Dowager was originally furious, but she was even more shocked by the claim that Consort Lin was a man and that the emperor liked men. Just as I was about to be dragged out the door, the Empress Dowager suddenly spoke up. Bring her back. The guards lowered their heads and hurriedly dragged me back inside. I didn't waste a second and continued dropping bombs. The child in the Empress's belly belongs to a guard. As soon as those words came out, all eyes turned to the Empress. The guards had brought me back to my original spot, but for a moment didn't even know whether they should let go of me or not. And I still wasn't afraid of dying. I clicked my tongue again and sighed. Hi, this palace of yours really plays wild. 03. The Emperor spoke first. Lin Lang, think carefully before you speak, he warned, his tone dripping with threat. Am I the type to fear threats? Not in the slightest. I blinked at him, putting on a got it, boss expression. Your Majesty, don't worry. I'm an honest person. I usually only speak the truth. The Emperor looked suspicious, clearly not buying it. The Empress Dowager, however, perked up and pressed, Lady Lin, what do you mean by that? The Emperor continued to glare at me. I let out a cheeky little laugh. Everything else I said was true, but that last bit? I was just making it up. The Empress Dowager was speechless. I turned my attention back to the Emperor and Consort Lin. Go on, don't stop now. The Emperor very much wanted to kill Lady Lin, but after what I'd just said, his rational mind kicked in. Killing someone was easy, even if that person had been the apple of his eye just a moment ago, but now, with my revelation, he wouldn't dare do anything that could damage his reputation. No fight? Where's the fun in that? That wouldn't do. I rummaged through the gossip I'd collected and decided to pour more fuel on the fire. Your Majesty, this Consort Lin has ulterior motives. The Emperor immediately snapped, teeth clenched. What else is he hiding from me? Your Majesty, which one do you mean? I asked innocently, as if everything could be negotiated. The fact that he and Elder Sister Lin are actually a couple and that Elder Sister Lin's daughter is Consort Lin's child? Or that Consort Lin wants to use surrogacy so that his son becomes emperor? The Emperor's eyes bulged with rage. What did you just say? I nodded firmly. Yes, Consort Lin and his sister have been together all along. That's real love. The Emperor froze. Consort Lin snapped. Shut up. And also, I continued, Consort Lin planned to manipulate noble Lady Shin to take down the Empress, so that when Consort Wang had a son, he could become emperor. The Emperor's pupils dilated in shock. Consort Wang's child is his too? I offered him some comfort, sweetly. Your Majesty, don't be too shocked. Consort Lin isn't with anyone else. Since you two are so close, his child is practically yours. Don't mind it. The Emperor fumed, blowing out his breath and glaring. Lin Zhaolon, I will kill you. He didn't even bother with the formal I, Jen, and charged straight at Consort Lin. Consort Lin refused to back down, fighting the Emperor while shouting insults. You shameless bastard, you think you can kill me? I'm straight. Who's messing around with you? And why do I have to be the one on the bottom? I gasped. Wow. This is explosive stuff. Can I even listen to this? The Emperor was enraged beyond measure. Consort Lin kept firing verbal shots. I like women. I like to be on top. And you rotten cucumber, think you're good at it? Ouch. Personal attacks now. The Emperor's anger completely exploded. Rational thought? Gone. He fought with Consort Lin while also accusing him. If you hadn't seduced me, I wouldn't have come for you. Consort Lin shot back. Are you out of your mind? You think everyone is seducing you? The Emperor retorted. Your public duck voice moans terribly. My skills are bad? Where are your skills? That little golden needle mushroom. You still want to be on top?
Dream on.
The Emperor and Consort Lin spared no mercy in exposing each other's flaws. I watched in awe. I wasn't the only one shocked. The Empress Dowager and the Empress were dumbfounded. Their expressions clearly said, should we be shocked at how insane this gossip is, or should we send someone to grab some sunflower seeds first? While the Emperor and Consort Lin fought like the sky was falling, I slid over to the Empress Dowager and the Empress. The two women, who were busy watching the chaos, immediately tensed up when I approached. I clutched my chest and gasped, I came to share some gossip with you, and you're wary of me? I'm heartbroken. The Empress Dowager and Empress exchanged glances. The Empress Dowager cleared her throat and asked, Lady Lin, do you have more to confess? I blinked at them and lowered my voice. This gossip is very important. Your Majesty, the Emperor is actually not your son. The Empress Dowager was stunned. I continued, on the day you gave birth, there was a switch. The current Emperor is actually the child of your trusted maid. The Empress Dowager froze. 04. While the Emperor and Consort Lin were busy wrestling each other, I had already started educating the Empress Dowager on some very old, very juicy gossip. Back then, when you were pregnant, your dear intimate maid had already hooked up with the late Emperor. She got pregnant just a few days after you did. In order to swap the babies, she even hired a midwife to induce labor. As soon as you gave birth, your child was switched. The Empress Dowager thought back to those days and ground her teeth in hatred. No wonder she kept saying she felt unwell during that time, claiming she was afraid of passing her illness to me and avoided seeing me altogether. After venting her anger, she asked, then where is my child? I looked at her with sympathy. After the babies were swapped, your child was killed. Thinking about it, I couldn't help clicking my tongue and shaking my head. Truly the most vicious heart belongs to a woman, cruel as a snake or scorpion. Hearing this, the Empress Dowager nearly fainted from rage.
It made sense, really. It was too much to take.
She had crossed moral boundaries to become intimately involved with her own maid, only to discover that the maid had already been involved with her husband. Not only had she borne a child, but she had also staged a baby swap and murdered the Empress Dowager's real child. For all these years, the Empress Dowager had raised her enemy's son as her own, and even helped him ascend the throne. If her health had been any weaker, she might have had a stroke right on the spot. The Empress looked at the Empress Dowager with a face full of pity. I immediately stabbed the Empress with a verbal knife. Your Majesty the Empress, don't bother pitying the Empress Dowager. You've put a green hat on the Emperor. You're about to be finished yourself. The Empress. The sympathy vanished from her face in an instant. The Empress Dowager was filled with resentment, the Empress with despair. But watching the Emperor and Consort Lin clawing at each other, they both felt a strange sense of satisfaction.
Ha!
Now that's the right attitude. I leaned closer to the two powerful ladies and offered a suggestion. Since he isn't really your son, nor truly your rightful husband, why don't you just... I made a quick motion across my neck. Both the Empress Dowager and the Empress froze. I continued persuasively. Empress Dowager, think about it. He tried to stop me from speaking earlier. He definitely knows about his own origins. If he realizes that you know as well, what do you think he'll do to you? The Empress Dowager's expression immediately turned serious. I went on. And Empress, your situation doesn't even need explaining, does it? Her face grew just as grave. I kept fanning the flames. He won't spare either of you anyway. So instead of waiting for death, why not strike first and get rid of him? After all, my eyes drifted to the Empress's belly. She understood instantly. Turning around, she grabbed the Empress Dowager's hand with deep emotion. Mother, why must women make things hard for other women? Only we, as women, can truly understand each other's pain. You must avenge your dead child. The Empress Dowager was clearly moved. The Empress pressed on. I am weak and only a powerless woman, but you're different, Mother. If you are willing to guide me, I will treat you as my own mother. In the future, the two of us can raise the child together. You can rule from behind the curtain and hold real power. Wouldn't that be far more comfortable? The Empress Dowager looked even more persuaded. Of course, I had to keep helping from the sidelines. Exactly. Get rid of him, and from then on the harem will be yours to control. Men, women, whoever you like, just bring in a bunch. They'll serve you both perfectly. The Empress. Mother, that part isn't important, the Empress quickly interrupted. What matters is that we survive. Mother, what crime has an innocent child committed? Her words were filled with sincere emotion. The Empress Dowager still hesitated. But, I've got dirt on every official in the court, I added helpfully from the side. As soon as she heard that, the Empress Dowager's mood changed instantly. She grasped the Empress's hand tightly. From now on, you will be my daughter. As mother and daughter united, we will surely live well. Mother, my child. The newly formed mother-daughter duo were still holding hands and getting emotional when I glanced around the room, grabbed a nearby vase, and strode straight toward Consort Lin and the Emperor. The two of them were still locked in a heated brawl, too absorbed to notice anything around them. They didn't even realize I had come close. Wasn't this a gift from heaven? Without hesitation, I raised the vase and smashed it straight down onto the Emperor's head. 05. The Emperor passed out. His head was split open and bleeding. Consort Lin froze on the spot. The Empress Dowager and the Empress were stunned as well. Meanwhile, I clapped my hands, glanced at Consort Lin, and began my performance. I turned toward the doorway and shouted in panic. Someone, come quick.
Guards.
Protect His Majesty. Consort Lin was confused. I kept yelling. Consort Lin has killed the Emperor. Consort Lin finally snapped out of it and rushed to cover my mouth. I tried to dodge, but failed. Though Consort Lin looked slim and delicate, he was still a man. How could a weak, powerless woman like me possibly resist? Of course, I would never admit I did it on purpose. There had already been plenty of people stationed outside. As soon as I shouted, guards rushed in immediately. Before, it might not have been clear whether Consort Lin had really tried to kill the Emperor.
But now?
The guards burst in to find Consort Lin holding me hostage. Wasn't that obvious enough? The Empress reacted quickly, putting on a pained, disbelieving expression. Consort Lin, His Majesty loved you so deeply. Even after learning you were a man, he didn't mind. And yet you struck him down, because your scheme was exposed. The Empress Dowager joined in without missing a beat. Even now you refuse to repent? Guards, seize the criminal Lin Zhaolon. Consort Lin still had hold of me and immediately threatened. Whoever dares come closer, I'll kill her. The Empress Dowager and the Empress were still counting on me for more juicy gossip, so their expressions changed instantly. I rolled my eyes and shouted at the guards, he doesn't even have a knife. What exactly are you all afraid of? The guards hesitated for a moment, then charged forward. Consort Lin kept screaming, don't come closer, or I'll kill her. Which, of course, was completely useless. The guards rushed in and kicked him flying with one swift blow. When Consort Lin was seized and thrown into prison, he was still completely dazed. Of course, the Emperor lying on the floor was just as dazed. The concubines watching from outside were equally confused, having no idea what had just happened. My principle was simple. If I caused the trouble, I'd take responsibility for it. I turned to the gathered concubines with a pained expression. To be honest, I made everything up. I only knew that Consort Lin forced noble Lady Shin to abort her child in order to frame the Empress. But no one believed me, so I had to start spouting nonsense. Who would have thought Consort Lin really turned out to be a man? Everyone looked at me with faces that clearly said, I may not be very educated, but don't try to fool me. I shook my head sorrowfully. After the Emperor found out Consort Lin was a man, he still refused to give him up. Who knew Consort Lin, realizing his plot was exposed, would actually try to? I sighed heavily. No one looked convinced. Someone even asked, is that really true? I nodded sincerely. Of course it's true. Otherwise, do you really think the Empress would dare cheat on the Emperor? The questioner immediately fell silent. Then I added, or do you really think the emperor likes men? You've all served him before, haven't you? The concubines exchanged awkward glances. I pressed on. Or do you believe the Empress Dowager is actually in a relationship with a maid? The concubines scattered at once. Who cared whether they truly believed me or not? As long as they didn't dare speak about it. And even if they did, that was none of my concern. The Empress and Empress Dowager had already summoned imperial physicians and were busy handling the emperor's situation. The concubines dispersed. Noble Lady Shin was remembered by the Empress and taken away as well. As for me, with nothing left to worry about, I happily went back to my palace to snack on melon seeds. 06. That vase of mine hadn't killed the emperor. But it didn't matter. The Empress Dowager had summoned her own trusted physician. Whether or not I had killed him myself, it was already guaranteed he wouldn't live much longer. However, since the Empress hadn't yet given birth, it wasn't convenient for the emperor to die too soon. In any case, by the next day, I had already heard the news from the palace servants. The emperor had been assassinated by consort Lin. Although his life was saved, he was barely hanging on, more breath out than in, and was said to still be unconscious. The Empress Dowager took charge and summoned the head civil official, Grand Tutor Su, along with the head military official, General Wei Yuan, into the palace. Both were loyal ministers. With them present, the court could at least remain stable for a while. Just for a while. Before noon, the Empress Dowager sent someone to invite me to her palace for a talk. When I arrived, the courtyard was lively. The emperor's biological mother was being pressed onto a bench and beaten with boards while all the palace servants watched. The old maid still refused to accept her fate, crying and begging for mercy. Your Majesty, I've served you all these years. Even if I have no merits, I at least have hard work to my name. The Empress Dowager, of course, was unmoved. The fact she wasn't having the woman executed in the cruelest possible way was already an act of mercy. I clicked my tongue and walked briskly into the hall. The Empress Dowager was chatting with the Empress. As soon as she saw me, she waved warmly. Langer, come here quickly. Her tone was so affectionate, as if I were her own daughter. No problem. I immediately stepped forward, took her hand, and said with emotion, Your Majesty.
As if I didn't know how to act too.
My sudden enthusiasm made the Empress Dowager pause for a moment. Then she cleared her throat and said, I've already made arrangements regarding the emperor. We'll keep that dog alive for now. Once the Empress gives birth to the imperial heir, we'll finish him off. The Empress added, Grand Tutor Su and General Wei Yuan are loyal and trustworthy. But with the emperor unconscious, the court is bound to grow restless, especially Prince Qin. Our emperor had no children, but he certainly had brothers. Prince Qin, 2 years younger than the emperor, was also powerful and influential. As long as the emperor lived, he wouldn't dare act recklessly. But now that the emperor was incapacitated, even if he had no intention at the moment, that didn't mean he wouldn't later. The Empress Dowager sighed worriedly. Since early this morning, Prince Qin's people have been asking everywhere for news about the emperor. Seeing that I remained silent, the Empress had no choice but to ask directly, Does Lady Lin have any leverage we could make use of? I casually picked up an apple, took a bite, and said, Prince Qin's wife is known to be infertile, right? Actually, it's because Prince Qin secretly gave her medicine to make her sterile. The Empress Dowager and the Empress were identically shocked. Finally, they blurted out in unison, Scum. Expose this to Princess Qin, and Prince Qin will be in deep trouble, I said with a smile. Besides, the emperor staying unconscious forever isn't a solution. If Prince Qin really intends to rebel, then the Empress Dowager understood instantly. All right, folks, things are about to get even messy, eh? With the emperor on the brink of death and heirs still in their mother's wombs, the stakes in the palace are sky high. Every whisper, every secret, and every sly move could tip the balance. Now, let's see how our schemers, Empress Dowager, Empress, and a very helpful Lin Lang, play their next cards.
07.
The emperor was critically ill, and the heirs were still in their mother's wombs. How could Prince Qin not have schemes brewing in his mind? As he plotted, the Empress Dowager and the Empress immediately began showing weakness, putting on a helpless facade. They even reduced the Emperor's medication. The Emperor had only just regained consciousness when the Empress Dowager rushed to him, crying, "My son, finally you're awake. If you hadn't woken, your mother might not have survived." She cried as she lightly punched his chest with her tiny fists. The Emperor had been unconscious for days, barely eating, and had lost quite a bit of weight. Her little punches landed heavy, and his face started turning pale. After a while, the Emperor seized the chance to grab the Empress Dowager's hand. "Mother, speak slowly." He still had no idea that the Empress Dowager already knew about his true parentage. The Empress Dowager, tears streaming, complained, "After you fell unconscious, Prince Qin made his move. Mother nearly lost your kingdom." The Emperor, furious, immediately summoned his closest aides. They didn't know the full story, only that the court had been tense in recent days. Wasn't it obvious? Prince Qin was pressing hard, and the Empress Dowager and Empress were doing their best to resist. The Emperor was furious, but then he thought of the Empress and looked at the Empress Dowager with curiosity. The Empress Dowager immediately gestured, "Son, first we must deal with Prince Qin." The Emperor nodded in agreement and quickly issued a series of orders, summoning several officials in succession. Some of these officials were loyal to him, and not even the Empress Dowager or Empress could summon them at will. Once the Emperor spoke, however, things started to shift. The Empress Dowager hadn't fully stopped the Emperor's medication. After meeting a few officials, the Emperor grew tired. Once everyone was dismissed, the Emperor asked the Empress Dowager, "Mother, why are you still keeping that wretch around?" Wiping her tears, the Empress Dowager replied, "Son, I've already had the imperial physician treat you. You may not have children in the future. You are the son of heaven. If you have no heir..." The Emperor immediately understood. The Empress Dowager continued, "Even if she's no good, she's still the Empress.
Who can know whose child she's carrying?
When she gives birth, we can claim the child. If you don't favor that child, we can replace it with another." She spoke as if she was thinking entirely for the Emperor's sake. The Emperor was persuaded. In short, he reluctantly accepted the idea of claiming the child in the Empress's womb, planning to exercise the claim the child strategy. The Empress Dowager, who had been acting so grief-stricken in front of him, rolled her eyes the moment she stepped outside. She scolded the dog Emperor while casually chatting with us. 08. The Emperor's medication had never fully stopped. In one day, he would only be conscious for a couple of hours. Whenever he woke, he needed to meet his aides to deal with Prince Qin, leaving him no time to manage palace affairs. Naturally, he had no idea that the Empress Dowager had already taken control of the inner court. If he grew even slightly suspicious, the Empress Dowager would give him some medicine to make him sleep a little longer. A month passed, and the Emperor's mind was starting to get fuzzy. The Empress Dowager worried endlessly. "Son, you've already been through so much, yet you still exhaust yourself. Mother truly feels your pain." The Emperor's body could no longer sustain itself. Some matters were left for the aides and Empress Dowager to report. The Empress Dowager put on a helpless expression. "I can't. I really can't." The Emperor held her hand. "Mother, you are the only one I can trust now." Hearing this, the Empress Dowager gritted her teeth and agreed. "Mother will safeguard your throne." With the Emperor's endorsement, his aides naturally trusted the Empress Dowager. Combined with all the juicy gossip I'd provided, favorite wives exterminating concubines, secret affairs, forbidden habits, and more, she and the Empress quickly consolidated the support of certain officials, plus their own family influence. In short, they had full control, with everything under their grasp. 3 months later, the Empress gave birth to a son. At the same time, Prince Qin was pushed into a corner and decided to gamble, attempting a palace coup. Coincidentally, the Emperor woke up after 3 days of unconsciousness. The Empress Dowager lied to him. "The Empress has already been dealt with by me." The emperor smiled, delighted. She added, "Son, your health is weak, and the court is unstable. You should immediately appoint the crown prince." Without hesitation, the emperor appointed his freshly born eldest legitimate son as crown prince. However, he stipulated, "Mother, it cannot be that wretch's child." Holding the imperial decree, the Empress Dowager nodded seriously. "Son, rest assured." The emperor, of course, couldn't fully relax. No sooner had the Empress Dowager received the decree than Prince Qin, taking advantage of her deliberate loosened guard, rushed in. The Empress Dowager handed the decree to the Empress, grabbed a handful of melon seeds from me, and said cheerfully, "Prince Qin has left. Let's stay a while longer, then we can wrap everything up." I looked at the Empress Dowager in mock annoyance. "Why do you always have to snatch my melon seeds?" She laughed cheerfully. "We're family, it doesn't matter." Still munching seeds, she asked me with a grin, "Lang, whose gossip shall we discuss today?" Over these 3 months, I had quickly become close with the Empress Dowager and the Empress. We would casually chat and snack on melon seeds. Since the court hadn't yet fully stabilized, the Empress Dowager, cautious, hadn't recruited young officials yet, but had invited several pretty young ladies for company. Honestly, life was surprisingly comfortable. I thought for a moment and said, "Prince Qin's youngest child isn't actually his." The Empress Dowager was shocked. "I like this.
Tell me more."
"It's the child of his secondary consort and his eldest son." The Empress gasped. "Wow, spicy." The Empress Dowager looked calm. "Well, at least it's still our blood." I muttered. What on earth could make her this calm? 09. The 3 of us chatted about gossip for a while, and when the time felt right, we went with the guards to rescue the emperor. Talk about perfect timing. By the time we arrived, Prince Qin had just stabbed the emperor and was laughing triumphantly. "I am the emperor now. The throne belongs to me." The Empress Dowager shook her head as if looking at a fool, then waved lightly. "Seize him." Prince Qin didn't even realize how he had lost. 2 days later, at morning court, the Empress, holding the crown prince, entered court alongside the Empress Dowager. With the late emperor's decree and the crown princess's report that Prince Qin was plotting rebellion, everything fell neatly into place. The late emperor had died from Prince Qin's assassination attempt. The crown princess was rewarded for reporting him and allowed to return home. Prince Qin was executed, and his advisors were exiled 1,000 miles away. The crown prince ascended as the new emperor. The Empress Dowager and the Empress became Grand Empress Dowager and Empress Dowager, respectively, ruling from behind the curtain, with Grand Tutor Su and General Wei Yuan as regents. All was settled. However, the new emperor was young. For the Grand Empress Dowager and Empress Dowager, there was still a long road ahead. The Empress Dowager thought the late emperor was impossible, so she had plenty of sympathy for the sisters of the harem. Using the new emperor's ascension as an excuse, she allowed all the consorts who had not yet borne children and wished to return home to leave the palace. Those unwilling to leave stayed in the harem, keeping us company. And let me tell you, the palace never saw a dull moment again. Just gathering partners for mahjong could fill 3 or 4 tables. Setting up a stage to watch a play could spark arguments about which play to perform. The Grand Empress Dowager didn't join in half-heartedly. She had already found her 2nd and 3rd springs. The young men around her, fit and handsome, were truly drool-worthy. Every visit, she enthusiastically shoved a few my way. "Lang, haven't eaten meat yet? Don't be shy, take them. They're all clean young ones." Although I was drooling on the inside, I was a giant with words but a dwarf with action. Couldn't handle it. The Grand Empress Dowager frowned. Useless thing. Yet every time I went, she stuffed more my way. Painful, but strangely enjoyable.
10.
When the little emperor turned 5, it was time for his education. The Empress Dowager anxiously approached me. "Lang, I need your help with something." I was curious. "What is it?" "Cheer should start his lessons, but I'm unsure who should teach him," the Empress Dowager explained. I understood. "You want me to recommend someone?" "Grand Tutor Su is excellent, just and talented." The Empress Dowager shook her head. His abilities are good, but he's old and… She looked exasperated. You've seen the results of previous tutors, good at state affairs, but their character is hard to praise. So, you want someone with strong moral character to teach Cheer how to be a proper person? I frowned. This was tricky. Teaching a young emperor reading, writing, or governance was one thing. But who dared teach him how to live properly? I actually have a candidate, the Empress Dowager said. I was curious. Who? She stared at me expectantly. I was stunned. You're not joking? She kept staring at me, even involving the Grand Empress Dowager. I didn't understand either. One moment of madness, I had killed the late emperor, and now I was supposed to be the little emperor's teacher? Of course, some things I couldn't teach, so the Empress Dowager still recruited a full roster of teachers. But secretly, she left me in charge of the little emperor's education. Honestly, I wasn't sure what I could teach him. After thinking it over, I decided to take him out for real-world practice whenever I had free time. Experience life among the commoners, see how ordinary people survive. At first, the Empress Dowager and Grand Empress Dowager worried, following us along. Later, I took the little emperor out for social practice, and they went shopping in the pleasure quarters. After seeing all the absurdities, I gradually accepted them as normal. I no longer remembered how the Empress Dowager and Grand Empress Dowager had been in the past. A little later, I pretended the little emperor was sick and sent him to a public academy for a few days. There, he met peers from different backgrounds. I even brought him to scale the walls of officials' estates. The first time, the little emperor looked at me accusingly. Aunt Lang, how can you make me do such ridiculous things? I smacked his head. Stop whining and watch carefully. The little emperor had no choice but to perch on the wall, observing the life in the backyards for an entire day. When we left, I asked, "Notice anything?" The little emperor looked at me blankly. Nothing. They just stay in the courtyard all day, either embroidering or gossiping. I asked back, "Do you think it's because they don't want to go out?"
He paused.
I asked, "Do you think her mother is smart?" The little emperor puffed up proudly. "Of course." I asked, "And compared to your ministers?" Without hesitation, "Some are smarter than mother, but some don't even measure up to one of her fingers." I laughed. Exactly. Not all women are inferior to men, but all women are confined within their estates. The little emperor frowned. Why don't they go out? I didn't say more, just patted his head with a smile. 11. Some things can't be rushed. I spent more than 10 years teaching the little emperor about the misfortunes of women in this world. That women also have talents, which shouldn't be ignored. That women are not merely tools for giving birth. I didn't think I could single-handedly change the world, but having an emperor who cares about women would at least open a path for countless women. I realized this was perhaps the most important lesson I could teach the little emperor. Thanks to my efforts and those of the Empress Dowager and Grand Empress Dowager, the little emperor grew up normally, without going astray. The year he came of age, the Empress Dowager and Grand Empress Dowager returned the government to him. The first major act under his reign was the establishment of girls' schools. Naturally, this met with strong resistance. At court, the little emperor watched the ministers bickering and asked, "Do you despise women so much that you forget they gave birth to you?" An official retorted, "Your Majesty, the two cannot be compared." The little emperor replied, "I grew up under my mother's care. Every word and action of hers influences me. Women's learning is not only for themselves, it helps them educate the next generation. Why should it be impossible?" The little emperor was clever. He didn't argue from a woman's perspective, he framed it in terms of men's interests. Soon, some ministers were persuaded. For those still unconvinced, the moment court ended, the little emperor ran straight to me. Aunt Lang, give me some gossip." I tossed him an apple from my hand, scolding, "Call me Aunt Lang properly." He immediately smiled and coquettishly said, "Aunt Lang." With my gossip in hand, the little emperor privately gained leverage over some officials. Together with the persuaded ministers, when he brought up the matter again, the few remaining dissenters were powerless. Girls' schools were quickly established, starting with the capital, then gradually expanding to the wealthier regions. As for poorer areas, the little emperor was still powerless. And this was only the beginning. 3 years after the schools opened, the little emperor stirred things up again. At court, he proposed. It has been 3 years since the girls' schools opened. This year, let them take the civil service exams as well. I want to see how well they've been educated. Naturally, ministers objected. The little emperor was surprised. Do you think scholars who studied for 10 years can't compete with girls who studied for only 3? The ministers fell silent.
He continued.
If even this fails, it only proves their abilities are weak. Perfect, let the girls filter them out for me. By now, the little emperor held real power. While not absolute, opposition was no longer fierce. Some ministers worried. But if a woman passes? The little emperor was shocked. If she passes after only 3 years, what immense talent must she have? Don't underestimate the girls. No official dared admit he was inferior to a woman. And in their hearts, they couldn't believe they could lose to a girl. When the exam results came out, everyone was dumbfounded. The top scorer was still male, but the second highest scorer was a girl. Among the top 10, there were 2 girls. 13 more girls passed the provincial exams. This time, the ministers didn't protest, because the little emperor acted first. Really? Girls passed? Women in office is absurd. But if I don't let them take office, would I be breaking my word? He fretted. His aides immediately replied. The civil service exams select talent for the court. Regardless of gender, those who pass should be appointed. Otherwise, the exams become a joke.
Some protested.
But women holding office is inappropriate. The little emperor retorted. If I break my word, how can I earn the trust of the people? You are asking me to contradict myself. The ministers fell silent.
12.
On the day of the Moonlit banquet, the little emperor arranged a seat for me beside the Empress Dowager. Before we went, he excitedly told me, Aunt Lang, the female second-place scorer is really impressive. You must look carefully, smart and beautiful, though still not as good as you. Indeed, the female second-place scorer selected by the little emperor had real talent. At the banquet, she faced challenges gracefully, neither arrogant nor submissive. From national affairs to public welfare, from poetry to Confucian classics, she spoke confidently. The Empress Dowager, moved to tears, grabbed my hand. Aunt Lang, I never imagined I would live to see a woman hold office. She continued. This girl is Xiao Qingshu, from a scholarly family. She is the most talented of her generation in the Xiao family. Alas, such talent could only be forced into marriage. Now to see her fulfill her ambitions, the Empress Dowager choked up. Not just her. Many who had never met Xiao Qingshu also wept. They weren't moved by Xiao Qingshu herself. They were moved by the hope for their own futures. After the Moonlit banquet, Xiao Qingshu entered the Hamlin Academy with the top scorer. Other female graduates were assigned minor official posts across the provinces. I kept a close eye on Xiao Qingshu. She did not disappoint. Within a year at the Ministry of Revenue, she devised a way for the court to generate revenue. Using her achievements as an example, the little emperor found justification to employ more women. Once the first succeeded, accepting a second was easier. Of course, the situation for women improved only slightly, still far from the modern world, but progress was being made, step by step. After 2 more civil service exams, the first female top scorer emerged. By then, women's circumstances had improved considerably. The Empress Dowager often said to me, Aunt Lang, I'm truly glad we made that decision. Cheer has been taught well by you, but more importantly, we've opened another path for women. I never claimed credit. It's Cheer himself who is capable. Later, the little emperor privately took me to meet the first female top scorer. He said, Aunt Lang, I will work hard to realize everything you wish for. I was stunned. At that moment, I understood why I had stayed, why I had kept repeating history over and over. I saw the sorrow of women in this world. I wanted to save not only the pitiful little concubine who shared my name, but also countless women trapped in cages of their own lives. So, I kept replaying events, over and over, gathering every bit of useful information. And ultimately, that persistence led to victory. 13. My obsession finally faded. I knew that with him in power, he would create an entirely new path for women. And once my obsession lifted, my body began to fail. When I fainted in the Empress Dowager's palace, everyone panicked. The Grand Empress Dowager wiped her tears and said, "You're younger than me. How can your body be weaker?" The Empress Dowager held my hand tightly. Lang, you were perfectly fine. How did your body come to this?" Only the little emperor looked at me and asked, "Aunt Lang, are you leaving?" I smiled and nodded, replying, "I'm not really from this world." The little emperor was not surprised at all. The Grand Empress Dowager cried, "Don't say such foolish things. With so many imperial physicians, we can surely keep Lang alive." But the little emperor said, "Great-grandmother, Lang wants to go." The Grand Empress Dowager froze. He then turned to me. "Aunt Lang, go. Whatever you wish to do, I will accomplish it for you. I trust you." Those were my last words in that world. I died suddenly, truly, an unexpected death. The Grand Empress Dowager and Empress Dowager grieved terribly. The little emperor was heartbroken too. But he quickly composed himself. He even posthumously honored me as Empress Dowager. In life, I was just a minor concubine. At most, I could have been a grand consort, but in death, I was elevated to Empress Dowager, and no one opposed it. From then on, the little emperor spent his life striving to fulfill the promises he had made to me. By the way, he was no longer little. He had grown up, becoming a true, upright man. It was wonderful. 14. A fleeting dream. When I woke, I found myself in my familiar bedroom, still adjusting for a moment. I got up and looked out the window. The sunlight was perfect, and spring was in full bloom. Honestly, I never expected my minor concubine chaos to turn into this. I thought I was just surviving palace politics, but look at that, teaching a little emperor, changing the fate of women, and still somehow surviving to see spring bloom. Life really does write the wildest stories, doesn't it?